First, I'd like to introduce you to the Indian. I don't think he was from the local Cape Cod, but anyway, do you know what they called the cranberries back in the old days?
No.
Cranberries.
Why?
And they say that the crane, it looks like a crane. And if you look in that picture there, you'll see there's a crane and there's a cranberry next to it. Because of that, I disagree with that saying. I only say yes, it might have been a cranberry because the cranes went in the water and ate the berries. Even that I don't think is true. Because while there's water on the berries, you don't want that because you can't pick it. But anyway, that's what they call that, the cranberries. This is a cranberry bog that we do every year. I make one every year. I've made one the last 2 years. Because of the epidemic, I haven't been busy doing it. But we do this for the children, the grade elementary school kids, because we have them come here and build a cranberry bog, which they do in a cup. And that was done in 2018. And that's part of this. This is my cranberry bog. I built it in a big ice cream cup, cookie cup, whatever. And it's the same as the picture down there you can see. It has the clay in the bottom, which allows the water to stay there, not go below that point. Then you got the gravel, because gravel holds a lot of water. And of course the peat will also hold peat or hold water, and the sand is on the top. And the reason for the sand is so that weeds won't grow so easy. Okay? And then of course the vines are just stuck in with your fingers, so it just reaches the loam. And it reaches the water. And that's the cranberry bog that we have. The cranberry bogs were built by hand. They were not a little something that you found. You had to take out all the material to a level area. The cranberry bogs were built, and we would go there with a wheelbarrow. And you take out all the turf, junk, whatever you wanted to get rid of, and put it in a pile to be taken away. And then from that, once it's leveled, all the rocks are taken apart, which you stored in a pile, because you're going to reuse those. So once you get it leveled to dirt, which you bring back one wheelbarrow at a time. And my grandfather always used to say to me or my uncle, "Fill him up, boy, fill him up," which he meant fill the wheelbarrow up. And you had to move fast, because the guy behind you would hit your heels. And so that's why most kids didn't work on cranberry bogs. Okay? They were afraid to get hurt, or they would be told that they weren't doing things right. But that's it. These are some of the tools that we use today. Not today, because today everything is done by machine. Back then, this is a rake. And what you do is you grab this by the two hands and you drag it. It's like combing your hair in the morning. What's it doing? It's loosening up all the leaves so they're untangled and whatnot. And then you got the grub axe and all the other tools that are used for cutting. This tool here is what they use for planting. What you do is you stick it in the ground, bend it, or like I do with the kids with a paper cup, just stick his finger in the hole, stick a weed, one of the cranberry vines, in that hole and squeeze it. And I asked the kids what they think about Friday, why they like Friday, going to school. And Friday is because that's the one day you water it 1 day a week. You're happy because you got a cranberry bog. All of a sudden that weed gets more green leaves. And maybe in a month or so, you'll see a flower. And also, not only Friday doing the cranberry bog, you don't have to go to school Saturday and Sunday. That's your reward. Now, cranberry bogs weren't in a natural growing area. It had to be made, fixed, changed. As you can see, there's a body of water on the other side of this roadway. They had to have an area for the water to come to the cranberry bog, because it had to have water. And as they built the cranberry bog, they had to level the area so that the water would penetrate the plants all the same time. And of course, the bogs were made by rebuilding from the bottom up. The bottom, they always had the clay, then they had the gravel, then the clay, then gravel, clay, then gravel, then loam, and sand. Sand was always on the top because it prevented weeds from growing. But when they built the bog, they would run their finger down or a tool in the ground, stick a vine in so it reached the loam. The roots would just about catch the top of the loam. You don't want it to rot. So it's to draw the water up. The gravel, stones hold a lot of water. And of course the clay will not let the water go beyond that point. So that gave the water for the cranberry bogs to grow. Okay? Now, this is a rake. It's used on the cranberry bog after you've picked, because the vines will be all tangled up, and this is like a comb going through your hair. And that's what this does. It loosens it and takes out all the dead stuff with it as it goes out, and they have to haul that away. And these are all the small tools for cutting and whatnot. Okay? Over here, after the ground has been leveled, they have to do that by wheelbarrow. We didn't have any heavy equipment. We'd take all the topsoil, put it in a pile, take all the sand, put it in a pile, save all the rocks, put it in a pile, and the clay, in most cases, was already there. And then it had to be put back in that same order so that it rebuilds and it ends up being flat, like this. And that's what he's doing. He's weeding the new vines or planting new vines. Okay. This is the bucket that they used originally. They made it in wood. It had a handle on it. And once they filled this up, they probably got about anywhere from 4 to 6 cents for each bucket. And they would take the bucket to Mr. In most cases, he was Finn, because in Finland they had cranberry bogs. And they knew about cranberries growing. They didn't know about the nice beach sand we have to put on it and stuff like that. But they did. Most of them ended up owning the bogs or being the boss. Okay? Also, this here was, as we came through, they made these round buckets. And how they did this, it would be a straight piece of wood. They would put it in hot boiling water and bend it around a pipe. And then tack it. And also to the bottom. This was a lot lighter than this was, but it didn't have a handle. Okay, this here is how most of the ladies dressed. And The reason they dress that way, the bonnet for the sun, the bottom part of the skirt goes right to the ground, because most of the work they did was on their knees, whether it was be washing floors or whatever it was. And also the gloves that they wore was for picking cranberries, hand cranberries. When they picked by hand, it would burn the skin, cut the skin or whatever. Not the berries, but the vines, okay? When you picked a bucket of berries, you would take it over to the boss man, they called them, which were mostly Finns, and in that case there, and he would give you a ticket. And you'd bring it back to her, and you see around her neck that pouch. That's where she would put the ticket. And at the end of the day, she would take the ticket over here and give it to one of the boss men. And he would count how many she had. So she had, let's say, 30 buckets they picked that day. And in most cases, it's not just one person. As you can see, the strings here, those are put in place for your family or your group to pick. You could not pick over the line. You had to stay in that line. Okay? So in a day, you might pick 30 of those buckets by hand. You know, at 5 cents a piece or something like that. It wasn't much money, but back then, yes, it was money.
Yeah.
And you didn't get paid until the end of the season. Okay? This bog here is the Doherty bog, Rowley bog in Dennis. I want to say this is my great-grandmother, who was 104 when she died. At 100, 102, she was still going to the cranberry bogs. We'd have to wheel her and put her on the black chair, on a rocking chair, and she'd sit there with a snap scoop, or just sit there and smoke a pipe. I can't swear to it, but I remember this as a kid. This was where the Mid-Cape Highway goes through in Dennis, there at the bridge there. And they closed that. Part of the bog is still alive on the right side. If you go with the rest area, you'll see that bog. But that's that, okay? Most Cape Verdeans wanted to be on a cranberry bog. They prayed for cranberry bog because they worked on it all year long, most men. A few women will be weeding, but they made they were lucky to make $1 a day. Okay? All right, now after picking cranberries, we're going to be talking about harvesting. Okay? All these insects you see here, including the frog, the turtle, the snake, had to be around cranberry bogs. I learned that the hard way through my grandmother, because I grabbed a stone and tried to kill a frog. And the reason I got punished is because when you're weeding or you're picking on your knees, this is not good for your knees. It hurts. And that's what happens. So my grandmother told me, don't you ever do that again. My grandfather also punished me because I grabbed a snake, water snake. And we used to get them and we'd snap their necks. Oh. A snake will eat 8 times its weight in a day. That's why they wanted him there. They wanted the frog there because he's going to eat the insects, the turtles and stuff. So these are things that part of the life of a cranberry bog coming along. And as kids, we learn sometimes the hard way. I want to, over here, this tray, what they do is they dump the berries, a box, on here. And you can see there's holes underneath there. And that's the sand will fall in, the grass, and she will push all that way. She'll grab a few cranberries, drop it. And if they bounce, they're a healthy cranberry. If they don't bounce, she throws it in the garbage. So it had to have at least 3-4 inch bounce. And that's what they did this for. Now, over here, this is the wheelbarrow we had. And as you can see, we have a square shovel. And the reason for that is when you're spreading the sand that way, the sand spreads out, fans out evenly. Whereas if you used a pointed shovel, all the sand would more or less go to the middle. And therefore you're getting too much sand there and no sand here. And my grandfather and uncle always told me, fill them up, boy, fill them up. And the reason for that is putting the sand up front. So that when you lift this, the weight is on the wheel, not in your hand. Because you had this in your hand all day long working. Okay? Over here we have the various tools. Those are for cleaning the ditches. This one here takes the grass and stuff out of the ditch. And this one here is when you built the flumes, of course they weren't as fancy as this is, but you had to pull the plank out. You'd hook it onto the plank and lift up. And that brought the plank up. It allowed the water to go through. And that's what this does. We didn't have rubber hoses for water. That's what this is, a hose. The rubber hose is used on the end to the pump. This goes across the roadway, so if the horse and buggy going through or the trucks, it won't damage the hose. And this is the pump we used. And if there was frost, we had to go out there and water comes up here and goes in there and ties into this. Okay? Okay? This is put in there for the vines as a separator. They dump the vines at the top. It falls into this. And somewheres we've got the crank. And this turns. When this turns, the berries will fall down into the box, down in the hole. Okay? There's a box, we'll put a box down there. And the vines, junk will all come out here, the grass and the vines and stones and whatnot. Okay? No, that's the Pleasant Lake store in Harwich. And across the street where the little parking lot there used to be, to the left of it, a screen house. Most people don't remember that, but it's an old screen house. And of course, there's your railroad, bicycle path. And of course, Howard Center's on the other side. That's a beautiful plot. And not that it was cranberries, but I think I have to say one thing. They brought a house across that pond that's across the street, Seymour, is that Seymour's Pond?
Yeah.
On the ice. Dragged the house from the other side, where Headwaters Drive, brought it over to here, dragged it up over the hill, and set the house here. A lot of work.
Amazing.
Okay, we're going to start here because this is more or less the life history of Cranberries. This one here, the first one, is probably early 1900s or even before that, 1800s, where they picked by hand. And when they picked by hand, you could have probably anywhere from, I'd say 60 people, because the kids, everybody was there, the whole family. Even the babies would be in the box, cranberry box, with nice towels to put them in there, because they brought the family, they had no babysitters, they had to bring them all to the bog. So, like I say, the kids would pick berries by hand, and the mothers and fathers, and that's the way it was done. Then it came in probably the middle 1900s, or 1930, 1940. They started here with the snap scoops and the hand scoops. And of course, here would probably be 40 or 50 people, less people, only because the kids could not be on the bog, because they couldn't pick with a scoop. Scoops are too hard for them, too big. And if they were there, they were on the shore. They're not in the bogs. Okay. Then we came here, where they came out with the machinery, and they picked these up. This one here, you probably had 15, 20 people on the bog, because you didn't have as many people, because you had one man on the machine, a couple guys bringing empty boxes, and a couple guys taking the berries off. And from there, the late 40s, they came out with the waterberries. And the bogs were flooded, and they had to use a machine that whipped up the berries to the top, and then they would put a fire hose and bring it all to shore and put it up on a truck. The only problem with these, they're waterberries. The value is 1/3 of the fresh berries, because waterberries cannot be used for just eating as a fruit or whatever. It had to be cooked, or medicine. They also made medicine with that. And that's why, like I say, that's today, it's less people. You probably have 8 instead of 20. And over here, even more. And of course now they have the railroad. That's not here anymore either, so. Okay. This picture here is done by Virginia Pina, and it's called gleaning. And the reason for gleaning, it tells us how they pick berries. As you can see, they're picking here by hand into the bucket, and then the guy dump it in a box, and the guy wheels it off. And over here is the mother and the kids. They started picking. And a lot of times the kids never went on the bog, the real young ones, so they played outside. And while the horse came to get the, Also, you have the shacks that were around the cranberry bogs. Most people came, not only the people that live in the area, but some came from New Bedford, Boston, Worcester. They stayed here for probably 2 to 3 months. And they stayed in a shack. They did all their cooking outside on a fire and slept on a board or whatever it was with a blanket, and that was it. The laundry was just put it in the water, wash it, and put it back on again. All right. As I said, cranberry picking was a family affair. As you can see, most of the local people that live in the area, the whole family went. Baby carriage, the little kids, buckets, food, whatever they're going to do, whatever they need for the day. And they'd go to the cranberry bog, pick the berries. And cranberry picking wasn't something that you did from 8 in the morning till 4 at night. You did it after the vines were dry, which could be anywhere from 8 to 10, 11. And that's why you didn't pick some days, hardly anything, but that's what you did. In most cases, you'll see the couple picking side by side. Those are all family members of mine. There's another family member. And of course, this is the one I mentioned on the big picture we saw earlier, where we done. And then came the scoops, which were down there. And like I say, those are all family members. In fact, that's my godfather. And you can see the scoops are big. They were young boys, and they really used the big scoops. I didn't pick much berries. I wheeled them off the bog. We got a nickel a box for taking them off the bog. I would take, when I'm coming on the bog, I would bring empty ones so that they could fill it up, so that they didn't have to do it. All they said was thank you. And the reason why I did that is because if they filled them up, I'd get paid to take them off. So that's what I did. I could put anywhere, it's probably 8 boxes on here, because we'd put them this way, and we'd stack them, 2 up there, and come up, and we could get 8 on a box, on a wheelbarrow. That one there, I think that was made by hand. That's a scoop, small scoop. I've never seen a scoop that small on a cranberry bog. That one, yes, that's a real nice small scoop. And then you have what they call a snap scoop. And that was started using in the 1800s. And at first they stopped them from using it because they said they were afraid it'd tear the vines because of the prongs. As you can see, this is what they're afraid of. And instead of picking berries by hand, you put this in the, pick them up, and spill it. Okay. This is a 26-inch scoop. Okay. And this is what they used all the time. Like I say, a man got to get on his knees. See, it's hard to get down. And you pick it up, and you do that. You bring it back. Once it's full, I got to get up, dump it in a box. Whereas a lady was a better picker than a man, because a lady didn't get on her knees. She could pick almost 2.5 to 3 times as much as a man. Not every lady, but most cases. Over here, we have the scoop. This is a scoop. These are all individual teeth. That's it. Okay? When that was broken, let's say this one here is broken, down there, you would have to take every one of these out and set them there in the line, in order that they were in here. And once you took that out, you'd get this one here, and you put it back in place of that, and then put these back in the order that they were before. That keeps the balance and everything together. These were made by hand. What it was a straight piece of wood. They'd boil it in hot water. And after they boiled it in hot water, they'd bend it. It had to be the exact same angle, groove, or close to it. Then they'd get their jackknife and get it nice and smooth. And to end up, if they needed to, the old stones, they'd use a stone. Most cases, the grinding stone, they'd slap that on. Many people, I've seen that, where they've done that. And of course, then you have your spacers, which go between each teeth. But this is a 26-inch scoop, and it's a little heavy. And that's why kids didn't use them. That's why you had less people on the bog. Okay? Okay. Now, this is the snap scoop. Okay? This came before that. That's when they were picking by hand, and they found they could do more. And what you do is that's why they call it snap scoop. Lift up the berries in here. And as you pull out, the owners were afraid that they were going to tear the vines from the ground, but they didn't. And when they saw that how much more cranberries it produced, they let them use it, which was late 80s, 87 probably, 1887, 1900, where they were using them probably a few years before that. And it was a lot easier to build. Today, you got the new system of harvesting, and what she's doing, and making sure he doesn't go into a ditch with that machine. Because if he goes into the ditch, he's going to need a helicopter to get out. That's his wife, Carver, Kroll, and his wife. And on that bog over there, you can see you've got 8 people, probably 8 people working. So if you own the bog and you're paying for expenses, it's a lot cheaper than it is to hire 40, 50 people out there. And then, of course, it ends up with the cranberries being floated on the bogs. And what they do, the machine, as you can see, it whips up, loosens the berries from the vines. And when it loosens them up, they all float to the top. And then you bring that in, corral them, and put them on a truck. And you could probably do that with probably 6 men on a whole cranberry bog. And that's why a lot of people don't want to work on a cranberry bog, because it's not easy work, it's hard work. After the berry picking, you have to clean the ditches to make sure that the water will flow properly. You have to do the sanding that'll have to be done, things like that. So again, this is my box that my aunt had. She gave it to me. And this is a straight piece of board. And by putting it in hot water, they round it. And then using a bucket, it was a lot easier using this. And they had other reasons for it too. Because we didn't have equipment for metal. We didn't have metal, which came afterwards, which you can see there with a handle. But this, like I say, you probably got anywhere from 5 to 10 cents when this was full. At the end of the year is when you get paid, end of the season, for cranberries. And you might get anywhere from $250, $300 for the whole year. And that's for the family working. But you didn't buy anything. I mean, you bought rice, sugar, coffee, items like that. And a fella came from New Bedford on a truck, and he'd come with a huge truck and go back empty. But that's what that's how we lived, and that's the way the cranberry growers, that was the cranberry life. Okay? Unless you got something else. This is a list of all the vendors of cranberries. We used to get excused from school. We didn't have to go to school for cranberry season. We also didn't have to go to school during strawberry season in May. I used to go to Falmouth and stay with my grandfather, get about 3 weeks out of school, and lived on the cranberry bog, on a farm. But I was able to learn the language because I had to speak it. And that's why today I can still speak 94%.